This one okay. So, if you remember last time I told you that we'll be talking about this biological classification. I told that human has that basic instinct. You remember that they wish to classify the organism. You remember we I told ki whenever there is something more than one, it is classified. And I told that it helps you to place the things in order, and you know where what is placed, and you can also retrieve the things from there. So managing the data becomes easy, and classification becomes more evident or more necessary when you need what you call as this proper arrangement of the organism and you want to study them, right? So that is what is called as biological classification. Like when it started, when science was not much developed, people used to classify, but that classification was non-scientific. It doesn't have any such criteria. So how they classified? They classified on the basis of food, on the basis of clothing, on the basis of shelter. So that classification was also there. ये plants है, ये अच्छे, ये खाने जैसे है. ये प्लांट है, इसमें से कॉटन मिल रहा है, इसको हम पहन सकते हैं. You are getting my point. ये इसमें से हम रोप्स बना सकते हैं, इसमें से फाइबर मिल रहा है. तो they were classified. But किस क्राइटेरिया क्या था? खाना पीना पहनना, मतलब नहीं क्या. साइंटिफिक क्लासिफिकेशन पहली बार अगर हमको किसको क्रेडिट देना है, दैट दे आर टोल्ड दैट इज लिनस. बट हियर इफ यू see they have mentioned another great thinker. Like that time we didn't have, like as I told, science might develop. We had great thinkers. You must have heard about that, Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle, right? So that great thinker Aristotle, he gave, you can say, the first scientific basis of classification, and he classified on the basis of morphology. You know what is morphology? What is that?
The changing of certain.
No. Morphology is the look, how a particular organism looks. That is morphology. Like if I am looking at a tree, so the branch of the tree, the roots of the tree, that is morphology. I am looking at the external feature of that particular tree. I am looking at the leaf, that is its morphology. I am looking at the height, that is its morphology. I am not looking at its internal structure. हम जैसे वो इंग्लिश में कैसे बोलते हैं, don't judge a book by its cover. So that cover is morphology. So maybe Aristotle that time he classified everything based on morphology. Like when he was classifying plants, so how he classified them as the herbs, the very small one, and the shrubs, and then the trees, according to their height. So trees, shrubs, and herbs according to their height. So that is morphology. You're getting my point? Like it's not the correct way of classifying. Like you cannot classify, like if someone is having a particular height and he or she is human. If it is having a less height, it is not a human. असं असतं का? नाही. बट त्या काळात म्हणजे तेवढंच क्लासिफिकेशन सिस्टम अवेलेबल होतं. सो असं नाही केलं त्यांनी, बट he classified plants as trees, shrubs, and herbs. As far as animals were concerned, he gave a classification like those which have red blood and those which do not have red blood. So he classified them. Maybe that is a very inadequate system of classification, but remember, start is important. He started. People started thinking कि अरे we can classify, अरे we can use different criteria. So ये शुरुआत किसने की? Aristotle. Aristotle ने पहले कैसे क्लासिफाई किया? Trees, shrubs and herbs. किसको क्लासिफाई किया? ऐसे plants. Animals को कैसे क्लासिफाई किया? Those which have red blood, those which do not have red blood. Then if you remember in the last lecture I told that it was Linus who like is credited. He is actually referred to as the father of taxonomy because he is the one who brought in a scientific way of classifying. उसने पहले क्या सोचा कि हम क्या करेंगे कि सबको मैंने आपको बोला ना plants और animals. So these two major kingdoms which came into picture. तो ये किस में आए? As plants and animals. So the very famous two kingdom system came, right? And that two kingdom system was the basis of classification. If you remember, I told कि even today whatever classification systems we follow, ये दो अभी भी है. किसको plant बोलना है, किसको animal बोलना है, ये आज भी हम follow करते हैं, right? So two kingdom system he gave. He classified them as plants and he classified them as animals, right? You can write later on. So because it's there, so you can just take it down later. So I told like if it is green, if it is at one place, if it is not moving, if it is preparing its own food, then it is plant. If it is like moving, if it is non-green, if it is not preparing its own food, if it is doing like evening like we do, so then they are what? Animals, right? So only two. So he did not look into other characters. You're getting my point. See, this is not a very good way of classification, looking at only one character. है ना? You look at like one guy and he's or she is not good in say speaking English. So let us assume. You just cannot assume that he is mad because his English is not good. He may be good at other characters. That doesn't mean that he is not a good student. There is a guy who comes late, say for example. You cannot say that he is not sincere. Maybe he is having some problem with this thing. So you just cannot classify any individual or organism based on how many characters, only one. But that time the knowledge of the characters which we had was less. You see, as the science advanced, then we come to know about the things and then you classify. See, if I am looking at that person and that person is coming late, at how many characters I am looking? Only one. But if I am given time and chance to know more about that, then my classification will remain same or it will change? It will change. So he did not classify as prokaryote and eukaryote. You remember in lower standards you studied actually ki organisms which have a well defined nucleus, they are eukaryotes and we are eukaryotes. Like, so there was no such classification. You see a like cyanobacteria, which is a blue-green algae, which is a prokaryote actually. When it is green, when it is green, it is plant-like, so you put it in plants. But all your plants, they are eukaryote. See now what happened? Ki, that prokaryotic cyanobacteria, the eukaryotic algae, and the big mango tree, since it is a mango season and I am wearing yellow because of that, right? We all put it in one kingdom, that is plant. Is it right? What do you think? Is it right? No. Putting a bacteria and plant in one kingdom, it is not justified. But तब मालूम नहीं था ना कि ऐसे दो टाइप के सेल्स होते हैं. उसने क्या बोला कि सिर्फ हम क्या देखेंगे, फोटोसिंथेसिस कर रहा है या नहीं. और अगर फोटोसिंथेसिस कर रहा है तो हम किस में डालेंगे? प्लांट्स. नहीं कर रहा है तो हम किस में डालेंगे? एनिमल्स. अभी साइनोबैक्टीरिया इज अ बैक्टीरिया, वो फोटोसिंथेसिस कर रहा है तो हम उसको किस में डाल दिया? Plants, which is not right. So we did not classify them as prokaryote and eukaryote. Therefore, maybe this system was inadequate. It did not classify as unicellular or multicellular. Like that cyanobacteria is only unicellular. That Chlamydomonas, which is an algae actually, it is also unicellular. That Chlorella, which is again an algae, which is unicellular. आपके इतने बड़े-बड़े plants which are multicellular, ये सब हमने एक ही kingdom में डाल दिए. You are getting my point? Like amoeba. You know amoeba. Now that amoeba is like unicellular, it's moving here and there, it is eating the food, it is heterotrophic. If I give you only two opportunities that you can put it in plant or you can put it in animals, where would you like locate amoeba? In plant or in animal? According to animals, because it's moving, it is like eating the food like we eat. Plants don't eat the food like you eat. You know? You may keep some food near the plant, you know, but plant doesn't take it. It is our Shraddha, we can say that we keep it right. But plants are not going to eat it. Amoeba eats it. So आपने उसको किस में डाल दिया? Animals. But then if you look at a giraffe, if you look at an elephant, if you look at yourself, तो आप भी animal है, amoeba भी animal है. आप दोनों का kingdom कैसे हो गया? Same. Not much justified. क्योंकि वो unicellular है ना, हम multicellular है, पर हमारा kingdom कैसे हो गया? एक. According to which kingdom system? Two kingdoms. According to which kingdom system? Two. Because I was given how many choices? Only two. So he did not classify them as unicellular and he did not classify them as photosynthetic and non-photosynthetic. Like say for example algae. You know algae? That green colored one. Sheva you call in Marathi. So that algae is photosynthetic, is it? Yes. The fungi now. You know fungi, the burshi. The one which you get on bread and all the chapatis and pickles if you keep it for a long time. That is not photosynthetic. But both are at one place, both are having cell wall, both are growing at one place, both are not moving, both are not having senses. So probably he kept them in plants. Now putting a algae and a fungi in one kingdom, what do you think? Is it justified? No, because plants are preparing their own food. The algae are preparing their own food. Fungi is not preparing their own food. You look at their cell wall also. Plant cell wall is made of cellulose. Fungal cell wall is made of chitin. But all these things were not taken into account. During which kingdom system? Two kingdom. Why I am going that detail? Because see what happens is ki when you are preparing for NEET, na, they will ask you questions from this one line and one word. Because every year this NEET is happening. Na? So this time if they are focusing on this paragraph, next time they are focusing on this chart, next time they are focusing on the next paragraph. So every one word and every one line you have to remember. So like I told, ki earlier classification was based on what? Food, clothing and shelter. Then I told the first scientific classification was Aristotle, but that was based on only morphology. Plants were classified as herbs, shrubs and trees. Animals were classified as those which were having red blood, those which were not having. Linus classified them as what? Two kingdom, plant and animal. Then he did not take into account three things. One, prokaryote and eukaryote. Second, unicellular and multicellular. Second, mode of nutrition, photosynthetic or. So people started now thinking about it. It was easy. See, two kingdom system is easy. Like you just have to see like and put it in plants and it would be easy to understand, easy to know, easy to classify, easy to use. And people keep on thinking. And today morning only I was thinking how people keep on thinking about it. Even if you talk to students, they are these days thinking about what would be the easiest way to earn money. What is the easiest way to become famous? What is the easy? We are trying to search some things which are easy. People want to know that what is the easiest way to remember. So remember, like it's not about how much easy it is. It is about how much useful it is. The more useful it becomes, the more complex it becomes. You see. So, but no doubt the great things in life are easy. But then classification system also it was easy. But many organisms, you could not put into either plant or animal. Like fungi, if you look at, it is at one place, so it looks like plant, but it's not preparing its own food, so it looks like animal. So you just cannot put it in plant, cannot put it in. So people thought that we need a more better classification system. And what they thought, you should talk about cell structure, how the cell is, whether it is prokaryote or eukaryote. They thought that we should talk about cell wall, what it is made of. Like just now I told, plant ka cellulose hai, animal ka. Animal में नहीं है ना, we don't have cell walls. So फंजाई का आपने बोला है ना, फंजाई का क्या था? काइटिन, राइट. तो ऐसे अलग अलग लोगों में अलग अलग सेल वॉल है. तो सेल वॉल का स्ट्रक्चर, उसका न्यूट्रिशन, like whether it is photosynthetic or non-photosynthetic, its habitat where it is living, whether it is aquatic, whether it is marine, in aquatic also, or whether it is in fresh water, that also helps in classification. है ना? People ask you ना कि तुम्हें कुठले, that is your habitat. है ना? That is not your habitat, that is your native place, but then reproduction, like how they reproduce, whether they are reproducing like asexually or sexually or like what, how, or again in asexual they are fragmenting or they are producing spores. You see, whenever I say spores, which organism comes into your mind? The sporangium and all. But then that is like we look more about like algae, fungi or bacteria. Like when I'm talking about sporangium and all, आपके ध्यान में कौन सा organism आता है? Rhizopus. So that is a algae, fungi or a virus or fungi. It's fungi. So that mode of reproduction also tells you something about that organism. Then the evolutionary relation, I tell you, maybe we'll discuss this in the coming chapters also, but since they are mentioned here, evolutionary relationship is something which all taxonomists, see, a person who is doing taxonomy is called as a taxonomist. So all taxonomists, they are now arrived at a consensus that is this evolutionary relation, which is very important. You see, आगे आपको यहाँ पे भी आएगा. You can see this small word. Can you read it? Phylogeny. So remember that it is phylogeny, which refers to evolutionary relationship. So what taxonomists today believe, even today, like we are living in which century now? 21st. So even in 21st century, I tell you, people believe that it is the evolutionary relationship among the organisms that is going to give us the best classification. And see, whenever you meet someone, they ask you, what is your name? Then from name they will ask you, kutle gaoche, like from which place you belong, what is your native place? Then they will ask you like you are son or a grandson of whom. So they want to know your native place. कि तुम्हें कुठून आले? People ask you like तुमचा मूळ गाव कोणता? पूछते क्या नहीं? पूछते. आपको कोई भी मिलेगा आपको पूछेगा. मतलब if they belong to the similar area they will ask. So people want to know what is the evolutionary relationship of the organism. हे आपलं evolution नाही आहे. आपलं हे आता ट्री झाली, फॅमिली ट्री समजा नाही का? But we want to know कि पहला ऑर्गेनिज्म कौन सा आया, फिर दूसरा ऑर्गेनिज्म कौन सा आया, फिर नेक्स्ट ऑर्गेनिज्म कौन सा आया. तो मे बी जो ऑर्गेनिज्म एक ही एरा में आए हैं, they are more closely related. You are getting my point. जो बहुत पहले आए हुए हैं, they are more closely related. जो बहुत अभी अभी आए, they are more closely related. You are getting my point. Like you have generations. You know, you have your grandfathers and grandmothers and grandparents and uncles and aunts, and when they will meet, they will have their own stories. You youngsters, you meet, you have your own stories. You will be sharing your Insta IDs and Facebook IDs, and you are connected there. They are not connected there. Fortunately, they are more connected than us these days. But then, what I am trying to say is कि if you find the evolutionary history of organism, कि पहले कौन आया, बाद में कौन आया, बाद में कौन आया, बाद में कौन आया, बाद में कौन आया, वो आपको ज्यादा किस में हेल्प करता है? क्लासिफिकेशन. सो टैक्सोनॉमिस्ट आजकल इंपॉर्टेंस किसको दे रहे हैं? एवोल्यूशन. और वो एवोल्यूशनरी हिस्ट्री को ही हम आदेश क्या बोलते हैं? फाइलोजेनी. एवोल्यूशनरी हिस्ट्री को ही हम क्या बोलते हैं? फाइलोजेनी. सो many changes came in the classification system because this system was inadequate ना. मतलब plant and animal में हमने classify किया, पर वो adequate था क्या? नहीं, उसमें changes आए. But one thing you have to remember, as I told, that plants and animals, they became constant. Even today they are there. But then one line which you have to remember is what organisms are included in it, that kept on changing. Like amoeba मैंने पहले animal में डाला था, but according to five kingdom system मैंने बोला नहीं, गलत हो गया. मैंने amoeba को एनिमल में से निकाल के दूसरे प्रोटिस्टा में डाल दिया. फिर मैंने क्या किया था, क्लैमिडोमोनास जो था या ये साइनोबैक्टीरिया जो था, ये भी प्लांट में डाला था. फिर मैंने क्या किया, नहीं साइनोबैक्टीरिया प्रोकैरियोट है, इसको निकाल के मैंने मोनेरा में डाल दिया. सो गेटिंग माय प्लांट एंड एनिमल इज स्टिल देयर, बट व्हिच ऑर्गेनिज्म आई एम गोइंग टू पुट इन प्लांट and which organism I am going to put in animal, that kept on changing. So you have to remember that though this remained constant, in NEET you have such questions also, like statement 1 and statement 2, and then they ask you like statement 1 is right and statement 2 is wrong, and both are right and both are wrong. So like first statement is that plant and animal remain constant, and second statement is that what goes in this plant and animals has also remained constant. So in that case first statement is right, second statement is wrong. What goes in that has changed. And you have to remember that change is the law of nature. And आपने सुना होगा कि only one thing which is constant in the world is change. So it's a paradox, but then you know it's true. So different people came, different scientists came, and they came up with the number and nature of different systems of classification. And one system of classification which worked well for many years, and which is the basis of this chapter. You remember the name of the chapter? No. Biological classification, right? I forgot to write that. So the name of the chapter is about biological classification. So as I said, what remains here, the system of classification which was given by R.H. Whittaker. R.H. Whittaker in 1969, he gave how many kingdom of classification he has told? 5, right? So there were 5 kingdoms which he gave. And you know those, you have heard about it. Like they are Monera, and they are Protista, and they are Fungi, and it's Plantae, and it's your animal. So these were the 5 kingdoms. And I tell you, this time also he took care of this phylogeny and evolution. So when he was classifying, Whittaker, what things he took into account? The cell structure, the body organization, the nutrition, how they are obtaining the nutrition, how they are reproducing, and what was their phylogeny. So this is how मतलब नहीं क्या Whittaker tried to classify. कब किया ये R.H. Whittaker ने? 1969. Earlier people used to believe कि these years and these scientists and like people used to say that you may not remember NEET में ये सब नहीं पूछते. But अभी 2024 में जो भी NEET हुआ, there were around 2 to 3 questions based on scientists and what role they played. So on one side there was a list of scientists, and on the other side like what they did. Along sometimes 24 में नहीं था year, but once there was also that year. So ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, आपकी टेक्स्ट बुक में जो एक वर्ड है ना, वो सब इम्पोर्टेंट है. ऐसे आप नहीं बोल सकते वो ईयर नहीं पूछेंगे, वो साइंटिस्ट नहीं पूछेंगे. आई रिमेंबर देयर वाज लॉट ऑफ आर्गुमेंट विद समवन द अदर डे बिफोर दिस नीट एग्जाम दैट साइंटिस्ट करेक्ट इज नाही. एंड देयर वर आय तो मला जे आठवते 2 क्वेश्चन होते. 2 क्वेश्चन इज इक्वल टू 4 मार्क्स. 4 plus 4 how many? 8. And if you go wrong, it is like 5 plus 5, it is 10 marks gone. So you असं काही नाही. आपल्याला लक्षात ठेवायचं, the first scientist you are encountering, not first actually, after Aristotle, Linnaeus, the third one is your R.H. Whittaker, Robert Whittaker. Year क्या बताया मैंने? 1969. Sometimes they will put that also, like Five kingdom system was given by R.H. Whittaker 1949, 1959, 1969, 1996. So all look same. So आपको clear है ना? It is 1960 because I told you this is not descriptive. आपने रॉबर्ट विटेकर लिख दिया 1969 की जगह आपने 1959 लिख दिया तो क्या आपका आधा मार्क कट हो जाएगा? या टीचर क्या बोलेंगे कि नहीं सब कुछ बरोबर लिखा है जान दो बाकी तो सब करेक्ट है 5 में से 5 दे दो. यहाँ पे क्या होगा अगर आपका वो ईयर ही रॉन्ग हो गया तो either it is right or it is wrong. So it is either 4 marks you get or you have like 1 mark is gone. You lose those 4 also, you lose 1 extra. So therefore you have to be very careful. So as I told कि किसने लाया ये system? Robert Whittaker. I'll just get for you. Want to? So, as I told that he was working with this and he came up with this classification system and he thought that I should include everything. To go one by one, I'll tell you what he did is he thought that let us go with the cell type. Like which is the cell type? You know that cells there are of 2 types. And one was what? No, not plant and animal now. Prokaryote and eukaryote, right? So he thought that let us go with this cell type. So he first talked about cell type and he told that all organisms which are prokaryote, he put them in kingdom Monera. So if you talk about cell type, so monerans they are prokaryote. Monerans kaise? Prokaryotic. Now it is easy to remember because all others are eukaryotic. So this is you, this is you, this is you, this is you. So no one is heard, all are you. So it is like eukaryotic. So Monera. So here you have to remember that this is the only kingdom which is prokaryotic. किती simple है classification बघा. म्हणजे if I am trying to classify an organism, I am trying to identify an organism. If if I look at its cell and it is prokaryotic, I don't have to give a second thought कि हा कौन है. तो प्रोकैरियोटिक म्हणजे 100% तो कोणता किंगडम मधला है? मोनेरा. खत्म. मतलब वहां पे डिस्कशन ही नहीं है कुछ. हम बोलेंगे नहीं ये प्रोकैरियोटे पर ऐसा है, प्रोकैरियोटे पर वैसा है, वो कैसा भी होने दो. वो प्रोकैरियोट है, उसमें न्यूक्लियस नहीं है, तो हम उसको 100% किस में डालेंगे? मोनेरा. खत्म. So if as well as the cell type is concerned, if it is prokaryote, it is 100% where? Monera. If it is eukaryote, then you have a question. It may be protist, it may be fungi, it may be plant, or it may be animal. Next question which we generally ask, like we'll go into this, but next question which we generally ask, like nuclear membrane अगर देखेंगे तो prokaryote में आपको पता है nuclear membrane कैसी है? Absent, because they don't have a very defined nucleus. है ना? नाम ही ऐसे है ना, pro मतलब primitive. आजकल के इसमें pro मतलब हाँ he is pro तो एडवांस हो गया पर इसे एक्चुअली यहाँ पे प्रो मतलब कैसा है? प्रिमिटिव. तो इसमें न्यूक्लियर मेम्ब्रेन कैसी है? एब्सेंट. बाकी सब में न्यूक्लियर मेम्ब्रेन कैसी है? प्रेजेंट. सो यू हैव अ वेरी डिफाइंड न्यूक्लियस. द डीएनए इज प्रॉपर्ली एनक्लोज्ड इन दैट न्यूक्लियस इन ऑल दीज यूकैरियोट्स. सो योर प्रोटिस्टा, योर फंजाई, योर प्लांट, योर एनिमलिया, दे आर यूकैरियोट्स. योर मोनेरा इट इज प्रोकैरियोट्स. तो न्यूक्लियर मेम्ब्रेन किसमें एब्सेंट है? प्रोकैरियोट्स, मोनेरा में. बाकी सब में न्यूक्लियर मेम्ब्रेन कैसी है? प्रेजेंट. खत्म. Second thing which I ask is body organization, that how it is, how the organism looks like. So here moneran is cellular, right? Like it is having only one cell. Have you seen a bacteria having 10 cells? No. So all of them, the monerans, they are unicellular. Protista also is cellular. See now this second question when I ask, no, it clears here. So here you have to remember that if it is eukaryotic, I had a confusion. See, if it is a prokaryote, there was no confusion. If it is prokaryote, I was putting them in. Now, if it is eukaryotic, the confusion was it could be protista, it could be fungi, it could be plant, or it could be animal. Now, second question asked is made of how many cells? So, if it is made of only one cell, I can be sure that it is protista. See, so only one thing to remember about monera is that it is prokaryotic, and 100% to unicellular, according to the book which we have. And For protista, it is eukaryotic and it's made of how many cells again? Only one. So how can I define a protist? If someone asks me like what is a protist or who is a protist, मैं क्या बोलूँगा? An organism which is unicellular and is eukaryotic. खत्म. I see amoeba, it is unicellular, it is eukaryotic. I'll put it in protista. I see a chlamydomonas, it is unicellular, it is eukaryotic. I'll put it in. I look at a paramecium, it is unicellular, it is eukaryotic. Actually, that has made this protista a very diverse kingdom. ह्या 5 किंगडम सिस्टम मध्ये तुला असं दिसेल की सगळ्यात डायव्हर्स आणि वेगवेगळे ऑर्गॅनिझम एकत्र येऊन जे बसलेत ना ते कोणत्या किंगडम मध्ये बसलेत? प्रोटिस्टा. कारण त्याच्यात मग सगळे आलेत, म्हणजे पाण्यात राहणारे, जमिनीवर राहणारे, हवेत राहणारे, है ना, दोज आर लिव्हिंग ऑन लँड, वॉटर, सॉइल, एव्हरीवेअर. Those who are making their own food, those who are not making their own food, those who are having the cell wall, those who are not having the cell wall. हे सगळं गोंधळ झालाय. In which kingdom? Protista. Why? Because protista मध्ये I am putting all the organisms which are and which are one cellular, which are unicellular, right? If you look at these others, now these fungi, they are multicellular, right? But they have a loose tissue kind of organism, like organization. So like, you know, filaments kind of a thing. You know, you've seen those molds and all which produce those hyphae, and we are going to look at this detail. This is just an introduction and we are going to look at each kingdom in detail. So we are going to look in this chapter Monera, Protista and Fungi in detail. Unfortunately or fortunately, we have a complete chapter dedicated to plantae and animalia. So one entire chapter on plants and one entire chapter on animals. So that we are going to see. In plants, you will see that the body organization, like it has a tissue, and it may have these organ system, multicellular. And here you will find that it may be your tissue, it may be your organ, it may have an organ system. And we have that respiratory system, digestive system, excretory systems and all, right? So that is one way, the body organization, right? How the body is organized. See, now you are clear that if I have an organism, it is eukaryotic and unicellular. Do you have any confusion? What confusion? No, no confusion. If it is unicellular, if it is eukaryotic, I'll put it in which kingdom? Protista. If it is unicellular, it is prokaryotic, I'll put it in khatam. इसमें कुछ problem है? Now the question is that if it is eukaryotic, right? And if it is multicellular, now again problem 3. Now like see, you're getting my point. So if it is eukaryotic and if it is multicellular, it could be a fungi, it could be a plant, or it could be an animal. So probably I'll ask them their mode of nutrition, that what you do. So if they are autotrophic, if they are preparing their own food, right, and they are basically photosynthetic, they are preparing their own food, but that also by using sunlight, then I am sure that it is plants. So for plants, I need only 3 checklists. Like it should be a eukaryote, it should be multicellular, and it should be autotrophic, and in that also it should be photosynthetic. Now I don't have any doubt. If I have an organism which is eukaryotic, which is multicellular, and which is performing photosynthesis, right? Then I'll put it in what? Plants. Now again I have a problem if it is like heterotrophic, because this is also heterotrophic, your fungi are also heterotrophic, and your animals are also heterotrophic. Like if I have an organism which is eukaryotic, which is uni or multi? Multi. Because if it is uni, then I'll put it in. No, it is eukaryotic, na. Monera is out of question. If it is eukaryotic, I'll put it in. If it is unicellular, but now it is multicellular, and it is even heterotrophic. You're getting my point. कैसे है वो? Multicellular है, eukaryotic है, और खाना पीना कैसे है उसका? Heterotrophic है ना. It cannot prepare its own food. So I have again 2 confusions. It could be either animal. Now probably the cell wall will come to the rescue, because if you look at the fungi, they have a cell wall which is present, and that is made of chitin. And if you look at animals, the cell wall is
not
present at all. The cell wall is absent. So probably that can help me to identify. So if I have a eukaryote, chitin wali cell wall, multicellular and heterotrophic. And heterotrophic also here they could be saprophytic or parasitic. You remember this?
Yes.
So if they are living on dead decaying, it is saprophyte. If it is living on other living, it is parasite. And animals like they can also be saprophytic, like or they could be holozoic, because we just consume the food. So they are saprophytic, they are holozoic, then they can be animals. You can also look at their role.
How saprophytic?
Like some of the animals which they are eating the dead this thing, no? So therefore probably they may be saprophytic.
But they are still holozoic.
They are holozoic only, but still they are living on other dead things. So therefore they could be saprophytic. Some of them could be parasite also. We have those leeches and all which are like sucking the blood actually. So they will be parasites. Some may even live inside you. So they are endoparasites. So mostly, as I told, whenever we are talking about animal, even the unicellular one like amoeba, we say there is holozoic. So here they are mentioning saprophytic or holozoic. As I told, like for NEET, sometimes like what is given in the text you have to remember as it is, keeping your this thing aside. Because आपकी बुक में दिया है उन्होंने saprophyte and holozoic आपको याद ही रखना है, so you have to keep in mind that it could be saprophytic or holozoic. I'll just check probably, but I think that it is both saprophytic and holozoic. We'll check what the textbook says. So this is how you can do it. Like as I told, you can also classify according to what role they play in the nature. Like if it is a decomposer, it is decomposing the things. What do you think? It is a fungi or is animal? Fungi. And it is eating, as I told, then it is animal. Coming back to the things which are left over here, cell wall of Monera, it is present. It is not made of cellulose, so it is non-cellulosic, but it is made of polysaccharide, right? And it is made of amino acids. So that is a different kind of a cell wall. Fortunately, you don't have the content or the structure of the cell wall of Monera, but that is made of peptidoglycan, a substance which is made of a polysaccharide and some amino acids. So a very complex kind of cell wall is present in this Monera. We are going to discuss this in detail in Monera kingdom. Protistants, they have cell wall present in some. So in some, like it may be made of cellulose, in some it may be made of some other thing. So some have cell wall, some don't have cell wall. As I told, Protista is very diverse. We discuss this also in detail. Plants, like you all know, that is present, and you are very sure that the cell wall is made of what? Cellulose. We are done with the nuclear membrane, we are done with the body organization. Monera, I am going to discuss this Monera maybe tomorrow in detail. But then Monera, if you look at their mode of nutrition, one thing you should remember that they are very diverse according to their food which they eat. So they are autotrophic. So in autotrophic also they could be chemosynthetic or they could be photosynthetic. Just to mention here, photosynthetic, that's what I am saying. Just to mention here, photosynthetic, you know. Photosynthetic is that they are using light. Chemosynthetic is that they are using chemicals. They are like, you see, there is a volcanic eruptions. तो वहाँ पे कुछ नहीं खाने को, वहाँ पे सिर्फ क्या निकल रहे बहुत सारे लावा में बहुत सारे क्या है chemicals. तो वहाँ पे अलग अलग chemical reactions हो रहे. They could do chemical reactions and get the energy from there. They are living deep like down in the oceans. वहाँ पे sunlight भी नहीं जा रही. तो भी खाना तो चाहिए, एनर्जी तो चाहिए, तो they could derive the energy from chemical reactions. I'm going to discuss this in detail tomorrow, but to just remember that they can use energy from chemical reactions and they could use energy from sunlight, but they are making their own food, so they are autotrophic. They can also be heterotrophic. They can be heterotrophic and they can, like as I told, that they can be saprophytic or they can be parasitic. You know that many of them they cause disease and they can also grow on dead decaying organic matter. So in heterotroph, so you can see they can do anything. They can make their own food from chemicals, they can make their own food from light, they can use a dead thing, they can use a living thing. So lot of diversity. As far as Protista are concerned, yes, they are autotrophic, some of them, but in autotrophic also they can be only photosynthetic. They cannot use what? They cannot use what? Chemicals. So ये उनका monopoly है Monera का कि they can use chemicals, other cannot. So they can be autotrophic, but well they can be heterotrophic. So they can also be heterotrophic. This I have already told. They can be heterotrophic. They can be. They are. They are not autotrophic at all. They do not have chloroplast or chlorophyll to make their own food. This also we told that they are 100% autotrophs. But you know some of them they are heterotrophs. You heard about that plant Cuscuta.
Venus.
Venus flytrap is not completely heterotroph because it is insectivorous. It is eating insects only for nitrogen. But basically it is green. म्हणजे तो फोटोसिंथेसिस करत नाही असं नाही म्हणजे तो त्याचं फूड बनवतो फक्त त्याला नायट्रोजन साठी तो तिकडे जातो म्हणजे येते तुझ्या लक्षात म्हणजे इट इज नॉट कम्प्लीट पॅरासाइट त्याला फक्त नायट्रोजन प्रॉपर भेटत नाही सो इट कीप्स ऑन इटिंग दोज इन्सेक्ट्स बट अदरवाइज इट ऑल्सो परफॉर्म्स फोटोसिंथेसिस बट देर आर सर्टन प्लांट्स लाइक वी मेंशन कुस्कुटा which doesn't prepare food at all but so it takes the food from other plants but we'll see but basically most of them they are rather all of them they are autotroph and that too photosynthetic whereas animals they are heterotrophs right yeah so this is what you call as 5 kingdom system of your classification so tomorrow probably we'll talk about like one kingdom in detail you can take down this so you will have a note of this immediately and then we can go to this okay